Hey everyone, welcome back to the sixth Verizon Connect training session. In today's lesson, we'll be covering everything related to on-call basics. And we're going to first start off with explaining the differences between how on-calls work in Sierra versus how they work in Verizon. And there's going to be a couple key differences to keep in mind as we're going through this lesson and as you're going about your work. The main thing being that within Sierra, on-calls have the ability to be assigned to a route, whereas in Verizon, on-calls, they come in always unassigned and are not preset to a route. And we'll show what that means in a simple example today. And that's going to lead us into the second portion of this lesson where we're going to take you through the step-by-step process that you'll have to keep in mind as you're creating an on-call, as you assign the on-call to a route, and just as you check up on the status of the on-call throughout your working day. And then we'll conclude with showing you how using the panels within Dispatch you can do things such as editing any pickups or perhaps unassigning an on-call that you mistakenly gave to one courier, but that should go to another courier and whatnot. So again, this first video is just the real basics for how on-calls are performed in Verizon. We'll have two other training sessions related to on-calls, and in the second one, we'll give you all more nuanced and complicated examples that you may encounter with on-calls. And then in the third videos, we'll wrap it up and explain some of the errors and problems that you may encounter as you're working with on-calls. So again, we'll start off by just explaining the differences between Verizon and Sierra on-calls, and it's going to really help us to actually look at how we are currently using on-calls in Sierra. So when we exit out of here, and if I head into Sierra, when I go into dispatch, this is a view that you all may be very familiar with. And when we try to add on-calls currently within Sierra, we can do so simply through order management. So in the examples that we'll use today, we'll be assigning an on-call in Northern California. So when I click into order management here, and once it loads, you'll see a screen that's pretty familiar in terms of orange on-call accounts. And there it is. So as you can see here, this is the order management screen. And if I just readjust my browser a little bit, we can see things such as the location. So these are the on-call accounts that you're all aware of. And if we choose to, we can filter by our area. So if I am a dispatcher or team lead working in Northern California, I can filter my on-call order management table to just show NorCal on-call accounts. Now, this is where the big difference is from Verizon and Sierra on-calls. The first being that, as you can see here, these on-calls are currently deactivated, and through the dispatch work, you can right-click on any stop. That's an on-call. You can create the event, and that will activate the on-call. And on top of that, it will activate the on-call and have it pre-assigned to this particular route. So if you scroll down through the page, you can see that these on-calls are set on a courier's route, so that currently in Sierra, if a ticket was to come in for, say, on-call account AL726, we can search for that account, and when we choose to create the event, it will activate the on-call, and it will automatically populate on Courier CA11's route. So that is a very simplified approach of how on-calls are treated within Sierra. And you'll see that when we go into Verizon, on-calls aren't pre-assigned to routes at all. And we've got to do a little bit of work to get the on-call assigned to a route. But the idea being that ultimately, using the software and using the routing tools, that on-calls will be distributed more accurately and fairly amongst the drivers. So now the idea being that using the Verizon software, we can give on-calls to couriers that are best suited for that on-call. Rather than just having the on-call pre-assigned to a driver, we can do things such as look at historical data, we can look at traffic patterns, and we can take into account where all the couriers currently are in order to assign the on-call to the best route rather than just the assumed best route. So that was just a brief recap of on-calls within Sierra. So we'll go into Verizon right now. And again, we'll take you through an example of an on-call within Northern California. So if I head into my dispatch view, I'll make sure to have Northern California territory selected, which I do at the very top right here above the map panel. And I'll make sure to be on today's date. So now that we have this here, you'll see that we've got our jobs populated for the day. They're assigned to the courier's routes. And if you're wondering why perhaps your columns may look a little different than what you're seeing on mine, please refer to the first video where we show you how you can set up your dispatch and Verizon environment in order to have the most optimal and informative columns and dispatch settings. So in this example, we will use the same on-call that we just typed in Sierra. We're going to look to add an account that's AL726 that is normally an on-call, and we're going to look to assign it to a courier. And through this process, you'll see the difference between how on-calls are treated. So the very first thing that you want to do if you're looking at incident tracking and you see the ticket come in for the on-call, you'll want to make sure that you're not doubling the on-call, so that if you're working perhaps with a big team of dispatchers, maybe it's another team lead, maybe it's another dispatcher, you're not duplicating your stops. So the very first way you can do that is within this jobs panel, you can choose to filter the jobs, and in particular, you can choose to search for that job. So in this example, we're using AL726, just called in for a pickup. We can choose to search for that. And we're making sure that this jobs panel is set to all, so that when we are searching for that account, we're searching through all of the jobs for the day, rather than say a job on a particular route or assigned jobs or unassigned jobs. So, and we'll show you what we mean by unassigned jobs in just a second. So if I click into the filter jobs search bar, I can type in my account number AL726 and I press enter, and you'll see that there are no jobs associated with the account AL726. So that's the very first thing I'll do as a dispatcher, and that lets me know that, hey, somebody hadn't created this pickup yet. I am safe to go ahead and add it to my driver and put it in the system. So we can clear that out. And the next thing we'll do in order to bring in that account into the system, we'll head into the plus button here, still staying within the jobs panel, and we'll choose to create a job. So when I click into that plus button here, it's going to bring up my create job menu with a couple tabs here that we will get to. The first tab being the job details tab. And now in order for us to search for the account, we will want to go down to this location search bar towards the bottom and above the map view. So within this location search bar, I'm going to click into that and I'm going to search for my account. And in this one, it's AL726. And it may take a couple characters in order for the account to populate. And we found that within it, it's best to type in a minimum of 3 characters. And you'll see there, now it's populating the account number followed by the account name. So when I select into that, you'll see the address is populated at the bottom. And that's one thing we can also verify as well. We can look at the address and we can look at the ticket address, and perhaps there are instances, and you'll see an example in the second video, where there are things such as alternative addresses, and we'll show you how you can treat those situations. But let's just assume that in this example, the pickup is indeed happening at 1375 East 2nd Street in Benicia. So I've got my account selected, and you see that when I had clicked into that marker, it is populating the job name at the very top with the account number and the account name. The next thing that we'll want to do is we'll want to select the type for the pickup. And you'll see that by default, this pickup type is set to a new job type is required. And that's intentional because you'll see now if I don't select the pickup type and I try to save my on-call, it will give me an error. And it will say my latest arrival time must be in the future. And the reason that is because we've intentionally built this into the system so that if you don't select a job type, the defaulted pickup windows will occur from 12:45 a.m. to 1 a.m. That's a very tight window, and also that's in a window in the AM in a date that is not set to work for today. And as a result, it won't allow us, if I keep trying to click this save button at the very bottom right, you'll see that I won't be able to create this job. So again, this is intentional. And if you're seeing this kind of error, what you want to do is you want to go back into job details and you want to make sure that you have a job type selected and that it is not set to this default one here. So in this example, it is an on-call. So when we click down into our type, we have the option to either choose an on-call box or an on-call live. And based on what we read in the ticket notes, we can say that for this pickup, it is an on-call box. And I'll select into that first option. And when I go into the time windows here, you'll see that time windows are defaulted to the pickup types. So if I go into time windows, you'll see that now my time window had changed, and the starting time window for an on-call box is generally set to 3:30 p.m. until 11:45 p.m. Similarly, if I go back to job details and I change the type to on-call live, and I go back into time windows, you'll see that the time window default for on-call lives are different. Those windows are a starting time of 4 p.m. with an ending time of 9 p.m. So those are just the broad windows associated with the pickup types, an on-call box and an on-call live. And let's go back and let's change our type, and the ticket did indeed confirm that it is an on-call box, but that the specimen is located in a box, but the building closes at 9 p.m., something like that. So we can always change these broad time windows that are pre-selected by clicking down into the menu, and we can say 9 p.m. So in this example, we've made sure to set our pickup type, and we've also made sure to adjust our pickup windows specifically to what was requested by the client within the ticket. The next thing we can do is we can adjust the time on site if needed. By default, they're set to 5 minutes, but perhaps this is a big hospital complex or a big prison complex. You could always adjust the time on site to something like 10 or 15 more minutes in order to accommodate that perhaps waiting time or the distance for travel for the courier. So that's just within time windows here. The last thing we can do within job details is we can make any name adjustments we want. Now, the job name here is what the courier will see on their mobile app. So if we wanted to, we could also add things such as the time windows within this pickup. So we can say that after the account number and the account name, we can look at the time windows and say, hey, it's starting at 3:30 until 9 p.m. So I can make that adjustment here, and I can set it to military time, the first time being the start, and then the end time being 21. So now the courier will see pretty basic information. They'll see where the pickup is, and they'll also see on their phone the starting time window and the ending time window for this pickup. And again, that just really ties into our big big goal of making sure we're not arriving early or late, but within the windows. The next thing that we can do is we can update any notes that we need to for this particular account by going down into our Notes tab. When I click into Notes, you'll see that there are some default notes associated with that account. And in this one, it's a pretty broad set of notes. It just says it's an on-call and it's a lockbox. But here we can also tailor it for this specific pickup, and we can give more detailed information, such as located on the first floor and next to the elevator. Just any additional info that may be helpful for the courier to locate the box or to complete this pickup, those can be added here in the notes column. Now that covered pretty much all of the additional details I needed to add for this pickup. We've set our job name, we've set the pickup type, we've searched the correct location, and we've edited any time windows that we needed to. So now I can save this job, and it's going to show us on the map immediately. It zooms in on where that account is. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that every job and every account that we add into the system as an on-call, so when we create that job through here, they will always come in unassigned. And unassigned jobs are represented by this white circle here. And you'll see that if I click on this eyeball here, these routes are symbolized by different colors. And as a result, the stops on that route are symbolized by the same colored circle. So for example, Benny here, he is represented. If I hover over his name, you can see on the map that he is the light green route, and any stops that fall under his route, if I choose to right click on his route and view jobs, you'll see that all of his stops are also represented by this light green dot. So again, that just ties into our point here that every unassigned stop comes in and is symbolized by a white circle. So let's say now I want to focus in on this unassigned stop. I can choose to do so by filtering my jobs page here. So again, it is preset to showing all the jobs, but if we wanted to look at the on-call we just created, we would click down here in the drop-down menu and select unassigned current day. And when I do so, I see that I've isolated my job that I just added, and you'll see that there's no driver assigned to it. And again, all on-calls when we first create them come in unassigned. They're not preset to a route. So what I want to do, I want to focus on this particular pickup, and I want to focus it on my map. So what I can do is I can right click on the job and I can choose to view it on the map. And again, that's going to zoom in on the stop, and it's going to center my map view right here above the pickup. And so you're kind of seeing where we're going with this already. You can see that by using view on map, so by right clicking on the job and clicking view on map, we can get an idea of perhaps who the best courier should be to service this account. And we're having an idea that it might be Courier Benny, represented by route NCA07. But what we can then do now, so after you've created the on-call, we need to assign it, and we need to figure out which route this goes to. And we can let the software recommend us some routes if we're having trouble identifying where this pickup should go. So again, we have an idea, we think it might go to Benny, but just to be safe, what we can always do and what we recommend every dispatcher do is once they've isolated this pickup, they can right click on the job and they can choose this option to recommend routes. And this is going to let the software figure out who can best pick up this account based on their location, their current location, based on traffic, and based on the stops that they have yet to complete on their route. So when I click into recommended routes, you'll see here that it is, first, it shows anytime you do some kind of function like recommended routes, it will show you existing violations for the day. And we'll cover what these violations mean in another video. But for now, I'll just close out of this. And you'll see now that my map view has been isolated and that my routes panel has been filtered. And in particular, you'll see that there are 4 routes that the system is recommending me for this pickup. And it's in descending order. So the best route that can take this stop will be at the very top, and the route that probably I shouldn't go to will be at the bottom. And just by looking at the map and hovering over these details, we see that it kind of makes sense, right? We see that Courier Benny is the closest to this pickup, and Courier Roya is the farthest from this pickup based on where she has to go throughout her route. So again, the system is saying of these routes, of all the routes that you have working for the day, these 4 can service this account, and they can do so without breaking time windows or working too late. So now that we've isolated the routes that can service these accounts, and we've got the job here that we need to assign, we can give it to the route we want. So what I'll do here is I'll hover my cursor over the blue portion of this pickup name. Again, it's AL726. I'll click and hold on the cursor, and you'll see now that I've got the job selected, and as I move my cursor, the job is moving with me. So what I can do now is I can slide it all the way down, and I want to hover that job over the courier route name. We don't want to hover it over here. We can hover it over the route name. So right here above the route name, we'll hover it over Benny. That's who we want to give this pickup to. And then I'll release the job. And you'll see a prompt that is confirming this pickup has been assigned to Benny. So we'll close this. And in the next video, you'll see that there's some times where, based on the violations that may result from adding a stop, the system will say this as the status that the on-call couldn't be added to the route. So we'll show you how you can troubleshoot that situation. We'll show you how you can understand the violations and what that really means for the route. But in this example, you'll see that we were able to assign it to Benny without any issues, and we've got the green light. So I can click close here. And now you see that when I'm on my jobs panel and I'm set to unassigned for today, we have no unassigned jobs. So the on-call we added has been given to a courier, and we can choose to exit out of this filtered view and going back into my all jobs view. Again, if I want to actually see where this pickup is going to happen within Benny's route, I have a couple options to do so. I can click on his route, and in particular, I can click on the eyeball, and I can see that, okay, right here, the on-call we just added will be stop number 6, and he's planned and expected to be there by 7:48 p.m. And we know that based on the windows we selected earlier, from 3:30 to 9, that he's well within the pickup windows for this on-call. So we feel comfortable about that. Also, what I can do is I can filter on his route and just view the jobs on his route. And when I do so, I've got 9 jobs that fall on his route, and I can look here at the planned arrival time and the time windows. So this is just another way where you as a dispatcher can validate what you're doing and the pickup times. So if I then sort my planned arrival time, this is the order in which Verizon is expecting the courier to complete his stops. And you'll see there's the on-call that we just added. Another view that you could do to really give you an idea of where the on-call is falling on the courier's route, you can right-click on the courier's route, and you can choose to open a detailed view. And when I do so, first I'll have to clear this. It's going to open up a timeline view for me of his stops. So you'll see here, this is the timeline, and we've got where his stops are falling under. I can also do the same thing for another courier. If I right click on his route and choose to open a detailed view, you'll see that this is showing a timeline view of his pickups for the day. So now let's say that in this example, we added the on-call to Benny. We've added it on the route, and then 2 hours have passed and we get an updated ticket that says, oh, the client actually, they lost their lockbox, they need an earlier pickup. Can this be accommodated? What we can do now is we can edit the pickup windows within that job. So we've got a couple options to do this. Again, we can filter, we know we've added it to Benny, so we can filter his jobs and we can locate the pickup here. Also, we can choose to search for that pickup based on the account number, like so. So in this example, we've initially created the on-call to say it has a pickup window from 3:30 to 9, but then a couple hours have passed and we need to make an update to this pickup. How can we do that? Well, now that we've isolated the pickup, we can click here into the blue portion, which is underneath the column job name. And when I click into the job name, it brings me back up until the jobs page, and I can now make all of my edits accordingly. So in this example, we can say that they need an earlier pickup than 9 o'clock. The first thing we'll want to do, since we've added the pickup time to the job name, we can make that change in here, and we can say, oh, it's going to be an 8 o'clock pickup instead. I can then, after I've changed my job name, I can go to time windows and change here to 8 p.m. I can also say that since they lost their lockbox, it is now a live pickup, and we've set it to on-call live, and we can then make sure we've changed our time window. Because again, if we do change it to an on-call live, it will change the time windows to the defaulted time windows associated with that pickup type. So in this example, we're going to say that it's actually a window from 3 until 8 p.m. So that's just something else to keep in mind is if you are changing the pickup type, be careful because it will then change the pickup time windows. So then you'll have to go back in the time windows just like we did and make sure that you're updating these accordingly. So we can also go into notes as well, and we can add the updated information. We can say that now it's going to be live. Lockbox is lost, live by 8 p.m. And we can save this. And so now you'll see that that's how we were able to update the time windows. And you see that when we updated the windows, it didn't change much. This courier was still expected to arrive within the expected time window, and that's great. Now, if we had changed the time windows to something tighter, say 6 p.m., that might have caused some issues where you may see things like violations coming up. But in this example, it was pretty simple, and we were able to make that update. So now we can clear out of here, and we can see all of our routes and all of our jobs as expected. Now, the last thing that we'll show you to do today is, let's say that in worst case scenario, this driver, he's in the middle of his route and his vehicle breaks down, he gets a flat tire, and he can no longer pick up at that location. What we'll need to do then is we'll need to unassign that on call, take it off from his route, and give it to another courier. So again, I can choose to view the jobs on that driver. It will filter my jobs view, and I can locate that particular on-call that I need to fix. So what I can now do, I can make sure I have the on-call selected. And what I need to do first is I need to unassign this job from the courier's route. And I can do so by clicking on the route and then right-clicking anywhere on that row and choosing to unassign it from the route. So now when I unassign the stop from the route, it's off of the courier's page. And when I go to unassigned, you'll now see that the job is again unassigned. So now in our example here, Courier Benny NCA 07 had a flat tire and he couldn't complete this pickup. We need to give this pickup to another route. We can again use our friend, the recommended routes feature, which will again open up any violations for the day. And then when we'll see the routes that can take this job. So in our example here, Benny got the flat tire, he can't do this pickup, so we'll ignore him and we'll give it to the next courier that's available. So when I do so, I can drag it down here and you'll see that the pickup was successfully assigned to that courier for the day. Now I can exit out of my view here. And now I'm back and set to my jobs panel and my route panel. I can choose to view all the routes, clicking on the eyeball at the top. So what we covered today was pretty much the basics for on-calls. The main thing to keep in mind is that unlike in Sierra, these on-calls are not preset to a route, but instead they come in unassigned, and through tools such as the map feature and the recommended routes feature, we're using Verizon software to tell us where this pickup should go to. Through recommended routes, we can see that a list of routes that could satisfy this pickup without breaking the time windows. And just by using the map view, we can see things such as nearby routes for that pickup. We showed you then how you need to fill out some of the basic info for creating the on-call. And in particular, when you're creating an on-call, one of the biggest things to do is making sure you're selecting the appropriate pickup type, and that when you do so, the pickup types are defaulted to certain pickup windows, and that should you ever need to edit the windows, you're able to certainly do so by clicking on the drop-down menus. You don't have to accept the defaulted pickup windows, and in fact, we recommend you tailor the windows specifically to what's in that ticket. Once you've done that and you've created the job, again, all the jobs come in unassigned. You'll assign it to your courier, and we've showed you how you can locate the stop on the courier's route using a variety of methods. And we also showed you how you can unassign the stop should you need to, and should you need to give it to another courier. In the next video, we'll show you more advanced on-call scenarios, and we'll show you what can happen when you encounter violations as you're trying to add these on-calls. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.